Welcome to the debate. Today, we're diving into what looks like a pretty dramatic shift in English shortwave broadcasting aimed at Africa. We're basing this on data compiled for the upcoming A25 schedule. That's the summer 2025 season. And the central question really is critical. Does the recent, very high-profile departure of major state broadcasters signify a decisive decline in shortwave as a strategic geopolitical medium? Or are we just watching a fundamental realignment of how it's being used? I'll be arguing that the evidence, well, it strongly points toward a significant decline in the medium's strategic relevance.
That's definitely one way to look at it. A compelling argument. Though I think I'd frame it differently. While the landscape is, yes, undeniably contracting for some of the, let's say, traditional players, I maintain that shortwave is strategically adapting. It's not collapsing. The withdrawal of certain governments, well, it simply created space for others to step in or step up.
But the retraction seems so comprehensive. I mean, we know that as of March 15th, 2025, all Voice of America, VOA, and indeed, all U.S. Agency for Global Media shortwave broadcasts to Africa are completely discontinued. That's not just, budget trimming. It feels like a full geopolitical retreat by what was the dominant Western actor. And add to that, the Voice of Nigeria, VON, which was once a continental giant, well, it's been functionally inactive since June 2023. So you have this twin failure, the U.S. pulling out and domestic giants going quiet. Doesn't that demonstrate that for major powers, the strategic value of this medium is, rapidly diminishing?
Okay, I appreciate that focus on USAGM. It's significant, no doubt. But the global market itself is far from defunct. The vacuum left by the U.S., it's actually being actively and, I think, effectively filled by other robust international broadcasters. We still see a sustained presence from the BBC World Service, and they're using those crucial relay sites like Ascension Island and Madagascar. And crucially, China Radio International, CRICGTN, operates daily English transmissions via its Bamako relay. So when you factor in the powerful, high-energy resources deployed by specialized providers like World Christian Broadcasting and TWR Africa, it's clear the channel remains vital. The users have simply changed.
But can that filling truly erase the massive infrastructural loss? USAGM didn't just mute the signal. They closed major transmitting stations. Key locations like Botswana and Sao Tome. That ends a major source of Western power projection, if you will, into the continent and leaves a gaping physical void, not just in coverage, but in the institutional infrastructure. This loss of powerful regional hubs, that's a physical decline that impacts the entire environment, surely.
That's a fair point about the specific infrastructure, yes. But I think the operational data tells a slightly different story about the coverage. The active international players, they're highly sophisticated, and they seem to be immediately filling those gaps. The BBC, for instance, maintains a really comprehensive schedule. They're successfully using Ascension Island for powerful morning coverage aimed at West and Central Africa on the 9 and 11 megahertz bands. And CRI, well, they're consistently active with daily English services, often using that 13685 kilohertz frequency via Bamako to reach Central and East Africa. So the technological viability is proven. The leadership, as it were, has simply realigned geographically.
The realignment of geography, I think that brings us to the next critical layer, which is what exactly is the remaining content? When we analyze who's using shortwave in English from African soil, we see, a massive shift toward highly specialized, often religious content. You look at services like Radio Elwa in Liberia or Voice of Hope Africa broadcasting from Zambia. They're overwhelmingly dedicated to Christian messaging. Doesn't that suggest the medium's utility is kind of shrinking down to niche outreach rather than functioning as the general secular news and strategic government communication channel that, say, VOA once provided?
Well, I'd argue that this specialization is the new strategy. Shortwave isn't really attempting to compete head-on with satellite or mobile networks for general news anymore. It's being deployed as an essential tool for targeted communication, especially where infrastructure is lacking or, unstable.
And besides, the remaining content isn't exclusively religious. We still observe local African state services like Radio Mali, ORTM, scheduling limited, targeted English news content. Even regional state services in Ethiopia, like Radio Oromia, they still seem to value English shortwave for highly specific regional communication needs that go beyond just faith-based outreach.
Ultimately, though, the complete operational withdrawal of VOA, the confirmed silence of domestic giants like VO1, and crucially, the closures of those key Western relay sites, it fundamentally demonstrates a retraction in shortwave's role for major strategic communication purposes, particularly from a Western perspective.
The material proves contraction. Yes, I grant that, but it also shows robust adaptation. Shortwave continues to thrive through these new vectors, the UK, China, and those high-powered specialized broadcasters. This confirms that the utility remains strong. It's merely shifted from what was, perhaps, a predominantly Western-centric medium to a truly global and, yes, specialized one.
It's certainly clear that the evidence before us offers a compelling case for both decline and strong adaptation in the African shortwave environment. The medium is fundamentally different than it was even just a few years ago.
Indeed. The material really shows that, while the U.S. has departed, others are actively investing, maintaining coverage, demonstrating shortwave's enduring, if redefined, utility.
We definitely want to acknowledge Tony Rogers of the British DX Club for providing 825 shortwave schedule information that formed the basis for this discussion. Thank you for joining us for the debate. If you appreciate this discussion on the shortwave environment in Africa, please do subscribe, comment, and maybe give us a like.